So here we go with Cyrus's first hand of the tournament. Obviously, not what he's really looking for here, if I had to guess. He's on the 5 minute delay. I'm not sure if we have our card blocker up, but I'm pretty sure he's going to throw this hand back, although he might keep it based on a couple of things here. First of all, Saeijou has mulled to 6, which is a big deal here as far as keeping a hand goes. Additionally, he does have a very solid 2-drop in hand.
Yeah, that one is pretty close either way. I could see keeping or shipping that one. I mean, it does have several interactive cards in it. Okay. Are we doing that just because it's the top 8 here?
Might as it might as well be up. I'm sure Cyrus is running on the 5 minute delay just so he can show his hand.
Right.
But because
I mean, I
he
know
hates
he's doing it
delay.
that way. Yeah.
Yeah, he hates the 5 minute delay. I think we can remove it. I'll ask him. I'll ask him in chat. Don't remove it yet, but
Okay. I had actually, that's fine. I had talked with him about it before, but if you want to ask him too, that's fine.
oh, you've already asked him.
Yeah, I've already asked him about it before. He
Oh,
said
okay.
it was
Well,
fine.
okay. Well, then remove the card blocker. That's fine then. My mistake. I must have missed that. So here we see both players leading off with their diamond shards. Both players playing Angels of Dawn in their deck. There's no reason for them to not lead with a diamond shard if they have it available. They are conversing a little bit in the German there, and obviously these are two friends going into this match, basically running similar ideas. Same testing team, I believe. So I might be wrong about that. I'm pretty sure Cyrus did say that yesterday, though. So uh, in a top 8 matchup, sometimes you're going to get paired up against somebody who you entered the tournament with. You're not expecting to. Cyrus hitting the Ruby shard. Now that we've revealed his hand, he did not have Ruby in his opening hand. Now he's opened up every card in his hand with just that one draw. He's got a lot of options here. I believe the strongest option he has here is to immediately remove that living totem.
Right.
It's probably one of the last times that he's got to make a decision here, really, knowing the deck list. And he chooses to use the Heat Wave.
Right.
Which is not the wrong option there, but in my thought process, it was a choice between Crackling Bolt and Burn. And if it was a choice that... Oh, there's the Angel. If it was a choice between Crackling Bolt and Burn, he has to decide, does he waste the 1 extra damage from the Crackling Bolt, or does he move on and use Burn, which could be used to snipe a Cerulean Mirror Knight. And he's almost punished for it immediately as an Angel of Dawn is top decked by Saeijou this turn and followed up by a Living Totem. The Heatwave Burn combo here could clear the board, but that's not an option anymore.
Yeah, I was just going to say before, there's not a lot of good uses for Heatwave in this matchup, but this is pretty much the best one right here. Cyrus contemplating his options if he wants to get rid of the Angel here, or if he wants to deal with the Totem first. It looks
So
like
here we
he's
see that
decided...
Solitary Exile coming down. Like you said, it's cutting off the Angel of Dawn. The Angel of Dawn, the potential damage is pretty big there, but then the Living Totem is now Cyrus has to assume it's protected, and then in addition, he also has to assume that his Solitary Exile could be removed off the board at any time to free up that Angel. So that's always going to be a threat here. Saeijou, of course, running 3 time ripples in his main deck, just has the option of time rippling a Solitary Exile after Cyrus is attacked in some way. which will free his angel for defense that turn. Um, Cyrus now looking as to what to do, not choosing to try to eliminate the living totem here, choosing to let it stay on the board and instead put down a soul marble. He is potentially 2 turns away from completing that soul marble, and Saeijou hits another top deck angel. That's 2 top deck angels back to back, and that's going to change this board again. I mean, this is very favorable for Saeijou, obviously, who did miss his shard drop last turn and will miss his shard drop this turn as well.
Yeah, and we see Saeijou did not go for verdict on Soul Marble, so he doesn't have the verdict here for the burn as well. So Cyrus is able to take out the Living Totem and put a counter on his Soul Marble here.
Yeah, so the Living Totem at the very least, out of the way now. The second Angel, just a bit bigger of a threat altogether, but Cyrus does hit that 5th shard, so now he has the option of ignoring the Angel just a little bit, counting up that Soul Marble if he wants to, or dealing some sort of play by putting the Living Totem down and pumping it up. If he puts down the Living Totem and pumps it up, he starts running into the situation where another shard next turn means he can pump it up and put it in the sky to defend against the Angel of Dawn, meaning Saeijou might stop swinging in at that point.
Yeah, he's a little bit of a conundrum too, because if Saeijou plays the Buccaneer, so it's possible he's turning on Buccaneer by playing the totem into it here. Looks like he does decide that he wants to go for the totem here.
Yeah, now Cyrus has 2 places to dump his resources. I personally feel like the Soul Marble would be where I would have gone there, taking that extra hit. Maybe it's the wrong play. Saeijou does not hit an Angel this turn, but does hit one of the dual shards, Shard of Purposes, in his deck that will allow him to choose between Diamond and Sapphire thresholds. And he has to make a bit of a decision here, but I don't think that his double Sapphire cards are actually that prominent. The only thing I can think of is counter magic. So by showing by showing the second diamond here, it's more of a I have Solitary Exile in hand instead of I have counter magic in hand. So Cyrus might recognize this here on the play. He might be thinking about that. He might just think that like you don't always think about these things in high pressure situations. I've definitely spaced out on why my opponent might be playing a certain shard over the other. But Solitary Exile being a threat, having hit a shard here would have been better for Saeijou, for Cyrus here, because he could complete the Soul Marble. But he does have the option now of trading his Crackling Bolt and Burn for the Angel of Dawn. But this is a very high-risk play, because Saeijou can just let the first Crackling Bolt hit. All right, well, if he had a verdict in hand there, that could have been devastating.
Like, I think there was one turn where he could have drawn verdict and not played it, but he didn't use it earlier. He probably would have used it if he had it, I think. But you're right. There is the chance for the 2-for-1 at that spot. And here we do see the Solitary that we predicted. Cyrus circling the marble. And that is what's going to happen here. Cyrus does go ahead and put a couple more counters on it as well. In case he's able to return the Solidarity to play, it'll have a few more extra counters on it.
Yeah, there's no reason in that situation to just let the Soul Marble disappear off the board. You should put counters onto it. If Cyrus, for example, draws his own Solitary Exile, he can remove that totem. Now Cyrus, considering putting the last card in his hand down onto the board against Saeijou's 4-card hand, and not just 4-card hand, we are talking about Wyatt the Sapper here, who could draw up a card in 2 more shards. And he chooses to do so. Looks like the Living Totem's going to go in here. Cyrus playing with an empty hand, all of his tricks on board for now. and he's going to start pumping up that living totem. That living totem theoretically safe from being destroyed. Now the issue here
Right.
is that Sapphire Diamond doesn't care to destroy troops unless it's in like the means of repel or meek, and both of those aren't exactly options against Cyrus's board. Cyrus now has to be afraid of Solitary Exile, which again Saeijou did play that diamond. Things like Buccaneer. Fortunately, Buccaneer isn't going to stop Cyrus from replaying the Living Totem here. So at the very least, Cyrus will have a play next turn. He'll be able to swing with Living Totem, not Living Totem, the Hope Heart Unicorn. Saeijou, though, only changes one card out of his hand for this event. So still 4 cards in hand. Once he starts hitting his shards, the options are going to open up for him. Cyrus being very liberal with the use of his life drain charge power, choosing to use it. I would say on 3 attack troops, it's not a bad plan. It's
Yeah,
not.
three
Yeah.
is acceptable, but yeah, usually you're wanting to get at least on the 4 power guys, but that's okay.
Well,
But
I mean,
the other thing,
he is sitting kind of pretty with. First of all, he's removed 2 of his opponent's angels, which are the
yes,
biggest attack damage threats that he is going to face aside from a soul cavalry. And in addition, we are we are looking at a case of he has so many charge powers at this point that it's not really indecisive for him to do that. On Cyrus's turn, he hits a shard and replaces Living Totem. Now, shard drops for Cyrus are basically meaningless here. He has nothing left in the deck that really cares about hitting a shard drop. He has no double Ruby Threshold cards that I can think of. Uh, no, he doesn't.
yeah,
And
not in his main deck.
at this point, the best top deck he could have found, I think he just did. Uh, and I think it's almost worth windmill slamming it here. Uh, Once again, we know the verdict isn't available for play. Counter magics aren't even online yet, and that will complete in 2 turns. That Soul Marble.
Now, interesting here, he's decided not to play the Living Totem. I guess he's doing that because Saeijou doesn't have the second Sapphire, and he knows that it can't be counter magicked here on this next turn.
I think it has to do with completing the Soul Marble
Armaments, yeah.
100% next turn, because the
Yeah.
only way he completes Soul Marble next turn. No, he
Is by
can't.
leaving up
He,
the
he
counters
wouldn't
now.
be able to. Yeah, he wouldn't
Yeah.
be able to. Yeah. What I was thinking is he could play the Living Totem, draw Shard next turn, but he can't actually draw the Shard next turn. Cerulean Mirror Knight from Saeijou onto the board, choosing not to swing in here. A Heat Wave would be devastating for the board, but that's not the case here. We actually just see it's going to be a quick finish on that Soul Marble, I believe. And then, in addition, I can't imagine Cyrus doesn't swing in with his Hope Heart Unicorn there. Uh,
Yeah, if he goes for the trade here, you end up giving up Mirror Knight plus one of the Buccaneers for Hope Heart Unicorn. That seems like a pretty good trade.
yeah, and well, no, he loses. Yeah, okay. For some reason, I thought there was a 1 defense troop on the board. I was just spaced out. Now, interestingly enough, and
Cyrus
probably
goes for the cavalry. Yeah.
the correct decision in this matchup, Cyrus goes for the Soul Cavalry. That will get him a bunch of health back. That is a spell shielded, uh, steadfast 6/6. Nothing in Seijou's deck can target that, can it? That might be
No.
the correct play. Knowing your opponent's deck list, I think that's the correct play. Uh, nothing else can touch that. Also knowing that that second Soul Marble can come down at any time here.
Yeah, so Seiju with a nice top deck here, or a nice play rather, with the Hope Heart Unicorn. It will buy him some time.
Yeah, it buys him time to some extent, right? Like now, this is going to stop the Soul Cavalry from swinging in this turn because then he can lose his Soul Cavalry to multiple blockers. And now the Angel of Dawn hitting the board here also is this is
Well,
good for both players. Whoa,
The thing is, Cyrus could just trade unicorn for unicorn in this spot.
Yeah, he
If
could.
if if it ends up being the triple block, that he could just decide to do it that way.
Yeah, he does have the option of doing that. He does have to be aware that he should be applying as much pressure as possible. He's going to have to force Saeijou, who is in a poor defensive health position here, into a bad play because Saeijou still has 4 cards in hand, and hitting shards means Seijou's options open up, especially if those are counter magics in hand.
Yep, Saeijou does decide to go for the triple block here. Cyrus is doing the math, deciding if he wants to use the unicorn to trade. And yeah, that makes sense. You don't want to lose the Soul Cavalry in that spot. And that is what ends up happening here. We have a trade of unicorn for unicorn. Saeijou does get to draw an extra card out of the deal, though, because of the Cerulean Mirror Knight. Cyrus, for his own part, decides that he wants to go ahead and put Living Totem into play, which is still a 4/4, and pass the turn back. And he does have the options. He's able to level up the Soul Marble all the way this next turn, even after playing that Living Totem. So Saeijou's got to have...
Saeijou has to have
multiple
a
answers
way
here.
to stop the Angel of Dawn in the air, and it doesn't look like that's going to be the case here. As it stands, it looks like Cyrus has just won. I suppose a time ripple does save the day here, but a time ripple doesn't save the day for long.
It doesn't save the day if Cyrus gets another shard, because he could do the activation one at a time. Oh.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
You're right. Oh no, Cyrus!
Cyrus not playing the shard first. This not a definite problem, but it could be
Wait,
bad.
and it's funny that he's not playing the shard first, as he is playing the Soul Marble 1 token at a time here.
Right.
Well,
okay,
I suppose...
but it doesn't matter.
Okay, it didn't matter. And now that I think about it, it wasn't exactly... It was just a turn delay there, right?
It would still just be a turn delay.
He could just
right.
time ripple the Soul Marble, the Soul Armaments themselves. Was the other option.
Well,
yeah, that's
well,
true.
Cyrus had options there because he also had the Living Totem that he could have put in the air, and that would have still been fatal damage. It did not have to be
he
used
couldn't
on there.
he couldn't create the cavalry and put the totem in the air for lethal that turn.
Right.
It
would have delayed it 1 turn longer.
Yeah.
Correct. He had to do one thing or the other.
Yeah.
He chose to go for Soul Marble, which I feel is a little more risky.
No, I think the Soul Marble's the safer play there. The big threat of Seijou's deck comes down to the tempo, and he had lost it. So you never want to give him a chance to get that tempo back. You never, ever, ever want to give him a chance to get that tempo back. And that does mean a lot of the times just putting a little more aggression onto the board than they want to.
Yeah, can't help but feel that Saeijou being so resource constrained in that game, and Cyrus having free reign to go and level up all of his totems and marbles was just the biggest difference there. These decks are similar in at least a good number of core cards that they share, and they are resource hungry. Shosny pointing out that Saeijou was lucky with the double early angels. Yeah, that's true. But as we just saw, it is possible to beat double angel. Now, do we want to talk about the reserves here? What we think they might be doing?
Well,
that
in the match here between Cirouss and Saeijou, right? Saeijou is going to be looking, probably bringing in his fourth verdict, probably bringing in his fourth solitary exile, maybe bringing in his frost wizards or his repels. It's hard to say. I'm not entirely certain about that, and there's a small chance he brings in that arcane shield that's sitting in his reserves, but that's entirely a different case. Cyrus, on the other hand, almost certainly bringing in uh, Army of the Arcane Cinder just to send the game down to end it out here. Probably bringing in his alternate solitary exiles. Things that are coming out though are hard to determine here because Cyrus has Meek in his main deck, but Meek has relevant targets all through Seijou's deck unless Seijou works around it. Meek can target Buccaneers, Living Totems entering the board early, Cerulean Mirror Knights, and I mean that's it, but that's still a very wide spread of targets.
Yeah, I think both players bring in solitaries, and I think both players bring in repels as well to combat the angel menace. That way, it's a little bit harder to get run over by the early angels. And I'm not sure if I'm Cyrus, but I would probably be taking out. I would guess Heat Wave, just because you're usually one for wanting them. Although we did see the scenario where it was at its best earlier, where you can take out an angel plus a totem if you have Heat Wave plus burn on turn 3 against their turn 3 angel plus totem. It's a little bit narrow, but that is probably the best scenario for that. Yeah, for the people who are asking, we are going on to game 2 now. Yeah, I know Cyrus was saying he thought this was his worst matchup, and while I would agree with him that it's not favorable, it's not unwinnable either. They do share a lot of their power cards. A lot of their best threats are the same on both sides of the field. All right, so we see the game starting up here. Saeijou taking the play.
Yeah. Obviously, well, Cyrus looking at a very similar hand here. No Ruby, but he doesn't seem to worry too much about his Ruby constraints. What I would be worried about here is on the play, Soul Marble is a turn slower. On the draw, Soul Marble is a turn slower, not on the play, obviously I meant to say. And he has two in hand, and two Soul Marble might not I mean there are so many factors here, right? You're a turn behind, so you possibly play Soul Marble into a verdict. You're a turn behind, so you possibly play Soul Marble and start pumping it up only to get Solitary exiled. And I mean, even though Cyrus can counter with his own Solitary exile, that he is playing a card up. None of these cards necessarily take advantage of the fact that he's a card up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but the good news is, I mean, in this, we've already talked about how we think both players are bringing in multiple solitaries, and Soul Marble is one of the key cards in the matchup. This might give Cyrus the option, if he chooses to play the second marble if he has his first one removed from his opponent's solitary. Looks like that's not happening here on this turn anyway, though. We do see Drew's Colossal Walker here. Looks like Cyrus has decided that he's going to level up his marble. Saeijou plays a Sapphire and plays out a Hope Heart Unicorn. passes it back. So either Saeijou doesn't have the counter magic or doesn't want to represent it. Either way,
Yeah, maybe
Cyrus takes the
he's
turn.
like I was saying earlier, possibly just knows that Cyrus can't complete that soul marble this turn and has the solitary exile maybe in hand. If all Cyrus is doing is pumping up that soul marble, not that big of a deal. And like we talked about earlier, there's multiple ways for him to deal with soul armaments. Soul Cavalry is the bigger threat, but not necessarily. So Saeijou drawing a card here with Wyatt the Sapper. Hopefully not an Angel is like the only thing in his deck he doesn't really want to draw there.
Looks like Saeijou has decided he wants to go ahead and ripple here. It does give him the option to counter it again on the way down if he would like to. Oh, Cyrus getting the top deck Angel this time.
Yeah, the top deck Angel there. Definitely not a poor thing for him to see here. Still interesting to see what he follows up with here.
Yeah, he does have several options here that make sense. Can't hear his live stream, but it looks like he's debating whether he wants to offer up the Soul Marble with the 7 counters on it for a possible counter magic here.
Yeah, that's the threat here, right? Like, this is the reason I think that Saeijou put that Hope Heart Unicorn down before, was now he can start, now that he's at 5 resources, he can start playing actions and troops safely.
And instead, Cyrus has decided to play the other Soul Marble that had no counters on it, and lets that one be countered instead. So the Soul Marble with 7 counters is still in hand. It does have its cost increased by 2. And here we see a Buccaneer from Saeijou to put the Angel Dawn back into Cyrus's hand. Cyrus considering his options. We know that Saeijou is...
It's possible he tries to burn here just to, you know, just to remove the troop off the board. The Hope Heart Unicorn isn't going to sacrifice itself, but he is going to double burn the Hope Heart, which is interesting.
Right. I think he's decided that he's already up several cards on Saeijou, and he just wants to go ahead and...
And now if Saeijou chooses to counter or verdict this, which you can see he's considering, and he does counter it, which means his angel, not his angel, his Hope Heart Unicorn will survive, but now Cyrus gets to play a turn with no fear of counters. And, well, he can't put his Soul Marble back onto the board yet, or his Angel of Dawn. A Shard opens up one of those options for him, opens up the Drews. He can play his own Hope Heart Unicorn here. He could play Solitary Exile. Has options here.
Yeah, this play seems fine, though. It's able to hold off the Buccaneer from attacking, and if Saeijou wants to offer up the trade Hope Heart for Hope Heart, I think that's probably fine for Cyrus here as well.
No top deck Angels here yet from Saeijou. Definitely could change this board around. Also, though, He is at 6 resources, maybe not what he necessarily wants here. Time Ripple really doesn't bother Saeijou that much here, I don't feel.
Cyrus, yeah.
Yeah, Cyrus. Also a little odd that he didn't swing with the Buccaneer knowing he was making that play. Maybe just really didn't want to sacrifice the Buccaneer there.
Yeah, I guess it's one of these. He wasn't sure. He knows he can get through 3 damage if he offers up the Buccaneer for a sacrifice. But just offering up the straight trade for Hope Heart Unicorn, I guess he's happier to just see it gone. Maybe because he knows Cyrus has Soul Marble with 7 counters still. But here you definitely offer Buccaneer for Totem. There's no way that Cyrus would want to take that trade.
No. I mean, like in a world where he had 3 more living totems in hand, like maybe.
Yeah,
So we see
sure, that's fair.
We see Seijou's own Soul Marble. That's kind of scary for Cyrus. I mean, there's a couple of things here. First of all, he himself not in a fantastic position to deal with Soul Armaments. Another top deck Angel hitting the board, definitely changing things up. Still not a Shard. But the other thing is, like, obviously Cyrus can deal with the Soul Armament, so maybe he wants those resources to get pumped in. Chooses not to, also okay. He's going to put that Solitary Exile on right now. Well, I mean, the Solitary Exile chomps a Verdict out of the hand. That does a couple of things here, actually. That not only stops...
You're doing it singing.
Yeah, not only does it stop...
I'll be right back.
Okay. Not only does the Verdict have to get taken out of his hand to answer the Solitary, but now Saeijou is a little short on being able to transform the marble on his next turn. Even if he top decks the Shard, he still is going to be 1 more turn off. Saeijou is ahead on life totals, but he is down on cards currently. He does have the Time Ripple. Put the Angel back into Cyrus's hand.
And this is exactly why Cyrus was afraid of going up against this matchup. Because Angels of Dawns are easily answered, I guess, by these type of bouncing and ripples.
That is true. I'm curious, with all of these ripples that we're seeing, if Saeijou possibly didn't bring in the repels.
Actions.
We do see a reserves card here from Cyrus that he's drawn now.
A reserves card that I find very interesting, considering, first of all, he kept a hand with no ruby in it.
Right.
And also, we are talking about like a 16-12 split on his shards, roughly.
Right.
So the Solitary Exile coming down, Saeijou making the same play Cyrus did before. You put as many tokens onto your Soul Marble before it goes in the box as you can, because you can always get the Soul Marble out of the box
Right.
if you can, if you know your deck has the ability to. Cyrus swinging in with the Living Totem here. He's making a lot of plays that are very, like, kind of aggression based. It looks like he's just that 1 resource away from swinging his own health pool back into a reasonable state of defense here, but it's just rough. Also, Saeijou showing him up, alternate art Living Totem hitting the board there. One day we might be watching this and see people playing full art Living Totem alternate arts in a top 8. That could be interesting. So, Cyrus not able to swing in with his own Living Totem anymore, as Saeijou will, first of all, probably take that trade 9 times out of 10, but also has the reactionary play. Like, Cyrus would have to pump his own Living Totem up there first. So if you gave it Swift Strike, you would give +1/+1 to your Living Totem. If you gave Flight to your Living Totem, you'd give Flight to your other living. Like, Saeijou could react to any of the abilities that Cyrus uses on his own Living Totem there.
Now, see, I think here you could take a line where you decide to attack totem into totem because Saeijou only has the 4 resources open to get 1 activation. You're playing a game because you know you're going to end up probably having to trade off and use your resources on your turn if he does decide to call your block, but otherwise you can get in possibly for an extra 2 damage there. Instead, Cyrus just decides, you know what, I just want the Drew's Walker. It's bigger than anything else that's out here, and I want to put it in play now.
I think it's also what he was afraid the least of losing, if that makes sense.
Well, also consider that Saeijou already played a number of counter magics, and verdicts doesn't work on troops.
That's true. I think we've only seen the 1 counter magic, though. Might be 2. Solitary Exile going to put maybe the Druze into the box, maybe the Living or the other Solitary Exile. Sorry.
Yeah.
That Solitary will get back that Soul Marble, and like we said, that Soul Marble already had a number of counters on it. Not enough for Saeijou to finish it here. But now, if it had 7 counters on it, I think this would have definitely been the correct play. Because then you could finish your Soul Marble and have a far more defensive board. As it stands, Cyrus is going to get to swing with Druze here. I guess Saeijou is going on the basis that Cyrus is not going to be likely to want to pay the 8 health to ready Drew's Colossal Walker. That is the way it goes.
Yeah, gaining the 8 health here is definitely a nice swing, but yeah, without having soul armaments already in play, it's a little trickier for Cyrus. He does decide to attack with just the Walker here, and it does walk into Repel. And now Saeijou with the Soul Marble advantage. Looks like the tide has turned over to his favor. Again, Cyrus with the early Angels, but Saeijou was able to answer them.
And like was being discussed in chat, Saeijou did have the option of time rippling his own Solitary Exile to double block something there if he had a time ripple available. We've seen a lot of time ripples from him. That repel is devastating for Cyrus here. I mean, he can safely play his own Soul Marble this turn. The problem is he cannot finish it and create a troop next turn on the board unless he draws another Living Totem. And even then, he's probably just in a rough spot to the opponent Living Totem and Soul Marble. So that Repel in hand obviously changed things, making the Solitary Exile play by Saeijou above and beyond the correct one.
Looks like Cyrus weighing his options for leveling Totem versus replaying the Angel, but decides to go ahead and play the Angel here. Yeah, that solitary bounce play...
I mean, really it's good. A very heavy investment, guys. Like, it's a thing you can do, but it's a very heavy investment. I just realized chat was talking about the same play. It's a very awkward...
Well,
like, you increase the cost of your own Solitary Exile. You're basically 2-for-1ing yourself in the short term.
The biggest downside... The biggest downside is if your opponent does end up getting a solitary later. And actually
speaking of solitaries, Cyrus now staring down a 6/6, a 3/3, and a 2/2, all standing against his Living Totem, which he cannot. Yeah, he cannot even trade with here. He has to block the 6/6 or he loses. And I don't see an out. I don't think Cyrus's deck has an out here.
I don't think so, no. No, even if he had, like, the Druze...
Well, what's in the box? Yeah, no, even if he got the box back, even if he got his Druze back, it's not enough here. A strong set of cards left in his hand. Uh, Two of them unplayable due to the shards that he had, and just the situation turning unfold. An earlier Ruby shard there would have opened Cyrus up to playing a Zakir, and that Zakir would have needed immediate answering. You cannot let a Zakir sit on the board. It's just not something you have the option of doing.
Yeah, Zakir is one of the ways that you can answer a Soul Cavalry if it gets to that point of the game and it hasn't been decided already. And it looks like he's decided that he wants to be able to beat the Soul Cavalries in this matchup. Yeah, just to answer some of the other things in chat, I think we talked about this already, but yes, you can ripple, and if you put the solitary back into your hand and never replay it, there would be no way to get it back. And yes, you could decide to replay it, take out a second troop or permanent of some kind, but then if they are able to solitary or solitary later, then you end up having both of those permanents returning. All right. We have Cyrus playing out a diamond shard here.
Yeah, he would certainly regret it if he drew an angel next turn and then had two angels in hand. If he draws a Zakir next turn, he will regret that decision either way. Obviously, he does have double diamond threshold cards, not just in hand, but in his deck. I think he was safe to lead with a regular diamond shard there. But maybe the potential is that he wants to hold on, be able to play Ruby next turn. It's hard to say. It's always interesting because there's little change-ups that you could make in your play that revolve around... Well, he draws his third Ruby. Doesn't matter anyway.
Doesn't matter anyway. I think you're right, though. I think in general, I try saving those dual shards for later if I have the option. Even with the Soul Marble deck, you're usually better off to see what you need later. Here we see Saeijou with the turn 2 Soul, excuse me, Soul Marble. Cyrus, for his part, has drawn another shard. He's going to go ahead and play the Hope Heart Unicorn. And now Saeijou, following up the turn 2 marble with the angel. That is a very strong start. Plays a diamond shard as well. Could have solitary. Won't be able to counter magic if that's a card that's in his hand.
Mm-hmm. That angel. Both players playing Angels of Dawn, both players here in the top 8, both players hitting a reasonably good streak of angels. No, this isn't curious at all. This is the Hope Heart Unicorn, swinging 3 health to be gained, burn from hand if Saeijou doesn't have an answer. Now, if Saeijou has an answer, this is trading 2 cards, board state, Yeah, there it is. There's the repel.
Yeah, the repel
Uh,
says it doesn't matter.
yeah. Uh, what I think what I think could have been there was another Hopart unicorn, like two Hopart unicorns on the board swinging. I don't know. It's hard to say. That's pretty bad. Cyrus needs to find one of his heavier drops here pretty soon. He can put the Soul Marble onto the board, but Saeijou can use every turn now to build up uh, a wall, so to speak, of Soul Marble counters. Like his resources have a place to go.
Right.
For some reason my Skype went off of Do Not Disturb, so I started hearing beeps, and it like distracted me mid sentence. There I just like locked up. I was like,
You're fine, man. So here we see another shard from Cyrus. And he's decided he's got a couple.
oh, that'll
of
help.
here.
That'll help here. The Solitary Exile off the top certainly changes what options he has available to him, just purely in removing one thing or the other.
Right. Looks like he's going to go ahead and go for the Hope Heart attack here again.
Thunefish in Cyrus's chat also making a very valid point that the repel play almost making it look like Saeijou doesn't have a counter or a verdict in hand, or he would have chose to try to eat that 2-for-1.
Yep.
So with Cyrus getting free swings, so to speak, Saeijou is just going to
Level up the marble.
swing back, and in this case, level up the marble while Solitary Exile snaps it up. Now, with no counters in hand, well, obviously he can't play counter. He's only got the single Sapphire Threshold, but with no verdicts in hand, you have to assume that there's Solitary Exiles in hand. The worst cards that can be in Seijou's hand right now are, in fact, counter magics for one, but I mean, he can still draw into those. The worst things that he could have had were other Soul Marbles, and those are still good.
Those are still good draws. Yeah.
Angel is perfectly fine here. Cyrus does not have many ways to deal with multiple angels. He has no judgments, and even if he did judgment, he would have to play Army of the Arcane Cinder into judgment. What Cyrus needs soon is a way to get rid of one of these angels permanently, or his own Soul Marble and the time to complete it. It's looking very risky. You can see you can even see the thoughtful look on his face. Like, it's at this point he has to wonder, is it worth it to run a Hopart Unicorn into the board here? I almost feel like you have to. I almost feel like you have to swing with that Hopart Unicorn here.
Offer the 1-for-2. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I would have done it with the life drain, purely on the basis that
he can't answer it at this point because he's got 0 resources over on Saeijou's side right now.
Yeah, I mean, you do get more health back from the angel, but by a factor of 1 in a potentially long-term loss. Now, Saeijou does allow this 2-for-1 to go through, and this is a very heavy advantage, I think, for Cyrus. Like, obviously, this Solitary Exile changes that up quite a bit, but even then, I think Cyrus still comes out in the long positive here. Just determined on the fact that at that time, that trade was what he wanted. Getting what he wanted out of the board opens up his other plays. Like, a Zakir here is still okay.
I think the trade was fine, but I think Cyrus probably is going to wish he had that 3 life here in just a moment.
Yeah, that 3 health making a huge difference.
Wow.
And top decks the Zakir. Now he top decks the Zakir. He top decks the Zakir after Saeijou uses Solitary Exile on the Angel to try to force through that last bit of damage. So the question is, does Saeijou have a Buccaneer Time Ripple or Solitary Exile to remove that Zakir? Because if he does not have any of those things, and Zakir gets to sit on the board,
wow,
and create a Power of Zakir card, oh my god. Okay, it's not the one he wanted. It's the Fire Servant. It's this 4/1 speed Swift Strike. Of the 5 Power of Zakir cards, that was probably the one he wanted the least. but Cyrus can put that onto the board and swing with it. He should not swing
With Zakir.
with Zakir here. He
Agreed.
knows for a fact that Saeijou's 3 cards in hand cannot remove Zakir, or he would have chosen to do so. They are either verdicts, counter magics that he cannot play right now, a soul marble that he chose not to play for some reason, potentially another angel.
Yeah,
like-
it smells like repel more than anything else.
Or a repel.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Cyrus choosing not to swing with the Zakir, making what I have to believe is the correct decision. There's the repel. That doesn't matter because when that troop leaves the board, it does deal 4 damage to target troop or champion, and Cyrus is going to choose for the board control option here to get rid of the angel.
Would you have taken out Angel, or would you have taken out Living Totem there?
And because Cyrus used his charge power on it, he gets to that 4 health back from the power of Zakir, the Servant's damage. I would have chosen the Angel. A completed Soul Marble is Cyrus's biggest threat here. Knowing that he has that Drew's Colossal Walker in hand, the Angel was just a bigger threat. The living totem is a much easier target for all of the other Power of Zakir cards, like I believe the Flame Breath.
The deal 3, draw 3, yeah.
No, that's that's like the gaze of Zakir. The one I'm thinking of is just deal X damage, where X is Ruby Threshold. Gotcha. There's a top deck Solitary Exile. Now, bear in mind that this doesn't necessarily put Cyrus anywhere near out of this game. He still has a Drew's Colossal Walker and Dimmit's Charge Power available. Any top deck Angel of his own can get back a Zakir and start doing more cards. This has turned into one of the strongest played finals matches that we've ever had a chance to watch here. Now, a lot of times players will hold shards in their hand to bluff additional cards. But in this case, every instance of life drain that Dimit is able to provide is incredibly important for Cyrus. So he has to know that if he draws a shard next turn, he might want to be able to ready and attack with that Drew's Colossal Walker. The Drew's Colossal Walker could be walking into a repel here, but I think that would be... Yeah, that's not what's going to happen. I was going to say, I think that would be an okay exchange, really. Cyrus, considering it right now, he knows he can either pretend to have something, and that might be valuable here, or play the shard. And he chooses to play the shard. Had he not played that shard, he potentially has Burns, he potentially has a Soul Marble, I guess, in hand, any sort of threatening number of cards. Now Saeijou knows he's top decking. Saeijou has 3 cards in hand. Not much card draw in Saeijou's version of Sapphire Diamond, which is potentially why he's chosen to play Wyatt the Sapper, who you traditionally don't play with Angels of Dawn due to their... I mean, nobody likes drawing an Angel of Dawn off Wyatt. Yeah, you're just like, oh... I mean, it's not terrible to find an Angel.
Oh, I don't have a free Angel.
Oh, I guess I'll just play this 5-cost 4/4 Steadfast Flight Avatar.
What? Cyrus, are you going to forget to pump up your totem?
I think Cyrus was changing the music on his stream, judging by the way chat is going. But he almost did. He hovered over that past priority.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting because, like, in a paper match, you might even have things like written down here. But Drew's Colossal Walker. Now, Saeijou potentially holding on to Time Ripples for this moment. This could be a big deal. The readying that Drew's Colossal Walker will cost Cyrus 8 health, which brings him back down to 12 from the relatively comfortable 20. Now Cyrus has another Drew's in hand, a Living Totem on board, and 7 resources. And the only thing he has to wonder is what are those 3 cards in Saeijou's hands? Are they counter magics? Because if they're counter magics, he's still in a good position. Are they time ripples or are they repels? If they're repels, why did Saeijou not use them last turn? You know, obviously one of these is a new card. If they're anything else, it's a different situation entirely, right? Like if they're just 3 shards that he's chosen not to play, which wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, I suppose, but
Well, it could be that he's taken the similar tech that you're thinking, and that he wants to represent that he has more action because he is Sapphire Diamond, which is very reactive with the cards that it plays.
yeah. So Cyrus pays 8 health, readies his Drew's Colossal Walker, gets going here. He's swinging in just a huge potential amount of damage that Saeijou has to worry about now. Saeijou can survive this turn simply by blocking the Living Totem, I was going to say. This either has to be an action available, there has to be a time ripple or a repel available, or Cyrus wins the match on this turn. So he passes the priority instead of pumping his Living Totem because he knows something must be available. And there's the repel, and that repel being used on the Drew's Colossal Walker. So Saeijou chose not to block the Living Totem and force Cyrus's resources out of hand. That must have been a top deck repel, or he would have repelled last turn while the Colossal Walker had life drain. He had no reason to let Cyrus get that 8 health back onto the board.
Yep,
so
absolutely.
Cyrus going to pump up his Living Totem here. This is, I think, his last chance to get his Living Totem ahead of Saeijou's. But this also means that he's not going to be putting a Drew's Colossal Walker onto the board. I think yeah, I was going to say, in my position here, I tend to favor the Living Totem's life drain quite a bit higher than a +1 when I already have board advantage. And a large portion of that to me is that keeping the health total swings in Hex are a very big deal. Not necessarily in this matchup because most damage will be represented on board, but even for Saeijou here, he has to be worried. Like 2 Crackling Bolts and he's out now.
Right.
And he pumped up his Living Totem before the end phase there. That is, again, a very important thing to look at. Yes, Cyrus had used all of his resources, but if Cyrus had a burn now, he could put Saeijou on 3 health. So, always got to be a threat here. If Saeijou passes his turn here, again with 3 cards in hand, Cyrus again has to wonder, is it another repel? Is it a counter magic? Is it a time ripple? What do I worry about here? And he gets a second diamond, well, a second charge. So now he can play Drew's and Living Totem. Got some sick news to drop for all of you guys after this match, but this match is pretty insane. So
Yeah, interesting that he's offering the trade here because both of them can be at the same level on this totem. Yeah, if Cyrus had waited one more turn, one more shard, not necessarily one more turn, he would be able to have the advantage on the totems that were already in play.
oh no. And there's the counter magic.
There's the counter magic. Seijou's probably been sitting on that one for a while.
Now, Saeijou does have 2 cards in hand, but underneath those Solitary Exiles is an Angel of Dawn and a Zakir. More importantly, underneath one of those Solitary Exiles is a Zakir. So Cyrus's Solitary Exiles are live draws here. Cyrus does not have time ripples available to him, unfortunately. But while Saeijou does have a Soul Marble under Cyrus's Solitary Exile, he is no longer capable of time rippling it because, Cyrus will just replay that and happily accept the gift of a Zakir. Like, yes, please, I will Zakir all day. Saeijou playing out his shards now. Whether or not they were ones in hands or one he's drawing now, we can never really be certain. because he has to get to that next charge power to try to regain card advantage. And now the 7-cost Drew's Colossal Walker comes down. Saeijou once again looking to need an answer. Either needs Buccaneers, Time Ripples. He clearly did not have the counter magic there. Needs a repel, but he's running out of answers, which is odd that a Sapphire Diamond matchup would end up in a position where we were wondering, do you have an answer? Because almost always the answer to that question is yes. Another Solitary Exile is still good here. Saeijou saying GG. Look how happy Cyrus is. that was some that was some fist pumps there. That was probably one of the better best of threes in hex history that I've seen in a long time. Cyrus is going to be really sad when we tell him that he was disqualified.
Oh man.
Yeah.
He has.
Let that sit for a bit. And no, I was just joking. Cyrus is, of course, not disqualified, but I hope that when the stream delay catches up, he's going to type in chat like, "What?"
We did have a very interactive matchup though, for sure. Both of those decks have lots of ways to interact with each other, and really at its core, the main power cards are very similar. We did see though that Cyrus, with the better trumps in that matchup, with the Zakir and with the Drew's Colossal Walker, was able to take that one down.
All right, that is insane. That was Cyrus catching up there. Oh man, it's worth it just to see him laugh. Top deck Angels left and right. No Gore Feast. What more can you ask for in a match of Hex? So that finishes Cyrus and Saeijou's match. Huge shout-outs to Saeijou, who put up an intense fight there. And this is Saeijou's second time reaching the top 8. The first time I believe he's got to play in it. So huge congratulations to Saeijou. Thank you for coming along today. Obviously, I'm sure your prizes are probably already on the way. Zubrin's always on top of that like crazy. Before that happens, Hexed Havoc taking down Guer, which is really cool. Well, I mean, it's really cool that match went out. It was a 2-0 victory. I was cheering for both people. Havoc and Guer, both friends of mine. So to see them both in the top 8 is exciting. To see them knocking each other out, less exciting, because, you know, that's how it goes. Tongkill's match still being played against Strife, but I believe Kind Mime and Kaldheim are already finished as well. I believe I saw that earlier.
Yeah, Kind Mime ended up winning that one 2-1.
2-1. So Kind Mime taking down a matchup that I didn't think was favorable for him, but he did win earlier in the tournament, and once again advancing into the semifinals of a top 8 match on a Shard Cup tournament series. Kind Mime almost assuredly the top seed going into the Cup of Fate. I don't think there's any way to stop that at this. Like, somebody else would have to, like Cyrus would have to win this event, and then top 8 into, like, somebody like Cyrus. It doesn't specifically have
not
to
necessarily
be Cyrus,
him. Sure.
but would have to then top 8 the next 2 tournaments while Kind Mime didn't make the top 8. You know, it's just an interesting little flippity-floppity.
Yeah, he's got to be the #1 seed for sure. Kind Mime's done very well in these tournaments. This is every single one. He's always in the top 8 here.